Welcome everybody. Today I'm doing a video on my Uberti Schofield revolver, and it is not any more special than any other Schofield revolver. There's a lot of information out there on the Uberti Schofield. If you do a search on YouTube or the net or any of the forums, there's plenty to find out about them as far as the history of the Schofield and the Navy arms and Uberti, or I should say the Army San Marco and Uberti replicas that have been available since the 90s. Uberti is the only one that does make them today. The early Army San Marco guns were problematic. We won't get into that right now, but this video is more on the use of black powder in the Uberti Schofield. So anybody that's done any research on these and has any interest in shooting black powder, you undoubtedly have read much information on the Uberti Schofield and its inability to be reliable with black powder. Most people, their experiences go from I can barely get one cylinder through without binding to, you know, I can get 15 to 20 rounds and then the cylinder locks up. And that's pretty much the case with a lot of these. I'm going to talk about my experience with it. I've had better luck than most, I believe, and I'm going to talk about what I did to get there. First off, I will say that I don't know if my gun is typical or an anomaly, as it is a sample of one, and that's all I have. But I will say that my barrel to cylinder gap is 10 thousandths. It seems, if I base that on modern standards, it seems excessive. Whether that would help or hamper the reliability of a Uberti Schofield, I don't know. I've gone back and forth about this. Maybe someone can enlighten me. To me, the extra cylinder gap, as far as a cylinder turning and having fouling on the face of the cylinder, to me the extra cylinder gap would keep it turning freely longer. But you could also argue that it would also allow more black powder fouling to be blown down on the what we're just going to call the cylinder pin for right now. So you can go back and forth on that. I'm not 100% sure, but I do believe that my cylinder gap is a little excessive, and it may be helping the situation or not. I don't know. But basically, when I first bought this gun, and I hesitated to buy one for quite a while because of the black powder issue I had been reading about, because I do shoot a lot of black powder through my Old West style replicas and whatnot. So it was a big deal to me. I finally decided that, you know, I want one so bad that it's not going to matter. I'm buying it, and if I have to just shoot smokeless through it, that's fine. But anyway, my first attempt at shooting this with black powder was pretty much the same as everybody else's. I was using just a regular GoX, either 2F or 3F. I probably tried both with Starline Schofield brass, Winchester large pistol primer, and a NOE hollow-based 45 Colt bullet. And I used a mixture of lubricant that I make myself. It involves beeswax and Crisco, and I believe some olive oil that I make. And first off, you know, you need to use a bullet that has either multiple or really big grease groove. You need to have lots of lubrication with any black powder firearm, really, especially your cartridge guns, to keep your fouling soft. I don't know if mine is any better or worse than SPG, but it's worked for me with the stuff I've been shooting, so that's what I use in this. Also, I keep a pretty good coating of food-grade lithium grease on the cylinder turning point, as you can tell. Anytime that I go take one of these out to shoot, when I come home, I clean it, you know, with hot water and this and that. And when I reassemble, I put grease on certain parts depending on what gun it is. But on the Schofield, you know, the cylinder comes off, and I got a really good coating of the food grade lithium grease on there. Whether that has any effect on my results, I don't know. It's just what I do. Anyway, my first loads, GoX 2F or 3F Winchester large pistol primer, Starline Schofield brass, and that NOE bullet. And my homemade lubricant went out probably on the third cylinder, which would have been the 13th through 16th rounds. It started binding up pretty bad. Had to spin the cylinder, get it freed up. It was rough shooting from then on. So, yeah, I was disappointed. I had high hopes, but I wasn't surprised. Doing a lot of research, about black powder and fouling and lubricants, and I decided I needed to try an upper tier black powder that produced less fouling. Now, from what I've read, most of the modern black powders that have been available over the last 50 to 60 years are not really, they're not manufactured the same way the original black powders were. And the original black powders from back in the day were supposedly cleaner burning, the fouling was softer, it was just, better made black powder. I mean, they've been making it for centuries, they knew how to make it. Smokeless powder comes out, and black powder is no longer a priority. So the manufacturing processes are probably, shortcuts are taken and whatnot over the years. And anyway, not to get into that, but anyway, I decided to go to an upper tier powder. And at the time, Old Enfield I believe it just come out, and I was reading a lot of good things about the cleanliness of the fouling. And I decided to buy some and try it. So I pretty much loaded up the same way. I start with volume to check my compression, and then once I get the volume I want, I weigh it, and then I weigh every charge after that. So my load I've used most consistently with this is 26 grains of Old Enfield with either the NOE hollow base bullet, and I have shot some of the 454 190 Lyman bullet too. I don't remember if it was the same powder charge, but I believe it was. Anyway, much better results. Next time I took this out to the range with the Old Enfield, I got a little over 50 rounds through it without any binding. I was thrilled, although I also wanted to, try it several times before I ever, started saying, hey, this is what I got result-wise. I have gone back to the range with it several times and had the same results. I can get through a full box of my hand-loaded Old Enfield rounds through this without any binding. And it didn't just lock up like pretty quick. It was a gradual thing that after I hit the 50 round mark, I noticed a slight drag, and as each round went through, it got a little bit worse. I was able to extend and keep shooting by just spinning the cylinder. It would free up the fouling good enough that I might get another couple cylinders out of it pretty easily, and I could keep extending the shooting that way. Were opposed with the GoX. Once I got into the third cylinder, I could free it up a little bit, but I might only get 2 or 3 shots before it was locked up again. So it was a drastic improvement with the Old Enfield. Anybody that wants to buy one of these and shoot black powder through it, I highly recommend that you use a higher grade black powder before you give up on it. GoX and Old Enfield is manufactured by GoX, I believe, are no longer available, unfortunately. Fortunately for me, I've got enough of this to last quite a while before I run out. I do have some Swiss black powder, I believe it's 2F or 3F, that I wouldn't be surprised that would give me the same results. It is a higher grade, more expensive black powder, cleaner fouling. I've used it in my lever action rifle 4440s with good success. I would be interested to hear if anybody's tried Swiss black powder through a Uberti. A couple other things I've tried off and on through the years is I've tried not sizing cases. I don't really size my 45 Schofield cases anymore because I mean, they're going back into this gun or a single action army. I don't have any problem with them chambering. It eliminates that process, plus having the bell to case mouth. So it saves quite a bit of time in my reloading process. Other than that, I just clean the cases real good right after firing them, get them dried out and load them back up. I haven't shot this thing in quite a while, but I'm sure if I went out right now, I would get the same results with it that I've always gotten. Trying to think if there's anything else I need to mention about this particular gun. Like I said, this is one gun. I've had discussions with other people that have gotten similar promising results by doing the same thing I did. And I've also talked to people that have tried Old Ensford in their Schofields, and they were just as bad binding up as they were with regular old GoX. So your mileage may vary on this. This is just my sample of one results. There are other avenues to go down also with annealing cases that I've read about. I haven't personally tried that, assuming that would keep, I guess, your cases limber and blow by from going down into the cylinders. I don't know. I mean, that's kind of one of the reasons that I stopped resizing my cases. I don't think it really made a difference in how much more rounds I got through the gun, although it did make my reloading process a lot easier, and I figured it extended my case life also. So there's some pluses to it. You can't do it with a lot of different ammos, but in this particular case, I'm able to get away with it. Velocities, another interesting thing. I mean, I say not surprising, but interesting, is Old Ensford and Swiss powder get considerably higher velocities than GoX with the same volume or weight charge, depending on which way you're going with it. My gun does shoot considerably slower, my Schofield, than a single action army with the same barrel length and the same load, regardless of whether I'm shooting Old Ensford or GoX, or even I think I've shot some limited smokeless through this, but I think on average a single action army with a 7.5-inch barrel is shooting about 75 feet per second faster than this gun, and I attribute it to the barrel to cylinder gap. I think we're losing a little bit there because of the wide gap. I don't think it's a bad thing in this gun. I think it keeps the velocities and pressures down, especially if I wanted to shoot smokeless. Obviously a Schofield, I would not go past a mid-range 45 Colt load, and in all honesty, I'd probably stick with cowboy loads, which would probably be in the, the under 800 down to 700 feet per second, 250 grain loads. I think that's the wheelhouse of this gun. The single action army, I think, has got a little bit more flexibility, but this gun does shoot considerably slower, and I believe it's because of the barrel to cylinder gap. And whether that barrel to cylinder gap actually, is helpful or detrimental to cylinder binding, I don't know. I'd be curious if anybody else has any information out there, has done any shooting and has measured their barrel gap. I'd be interested to hear back from them. This particular gun, it's got a very smooth action. I really do like it. I won't be getting rid of it anytime soon. It's got like I said, it's got a very smooth action. I did do a modification to it that made it considerably smoother that I won't go into on YouTube here. I probably put a couple hundred rounds through it, and it seemed like the barrel maybe was getting a little bit more play, so I did replace this threaded bushing that the hinge screw goes through. I think I got that from Taylor's, and that solved my problem. I put plenty of rounds through it downrange now, and it's stayed plenty tight. I mean, I really like it. Do I like it as much as my single action armies? I don't know. It's got some definite cool factor to it, and I like top rakes. I've had a Cimarron American 8-inch been on a waiting list for like 2.5 years for 1 in 44 special, and I'm excited if it ever does show up. But I love this gun. It's a good shooter. Shot pretty accurate for me anyway. I'm not the greatest pistol shot, but with all those loads, probably a little bit high at 25 yards, maybe 4 or 5 inches, but I could cover 5 rounds with my hand easily. I know for some of you that might be, well, so what, but for me that's pretty good. I don't know, it's a good gun. I like it. I've been happy with what I get out of it with black powder. I'm not a cowboy action shooter, so I'm not shooting hundreds of rounds in one sitting. I'll take this gun and 4 or 5 other guns to the range and shoot 20 to 50 rounds through each of them, and I've had my fill and I go home. And that's for me, getting a whole box of ammo through this without any binding with black powder. Those results are much better than what I read on the internet, and I figured I'd want to share my processes, and I'm sure there's stuff I'm forgetting. So if anybody's got any questions about, what I might have done in certain scenarios with this, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. Or if anybody has any more information about ways to get even more reliability out of this, please post it and share it. There's a lot of people out there that have these that love them, but they really wish they would be better with black powder. So the more information we get out there to help people with, getting the most fun out of their Schofields, the better off we are. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you got something out of it. I hope there's something maybe you can share with me to help me get something out of posting this video, something I can learn. And you have a good day.